Imagine the world growing quiet, long before electric lights, glowing screens, or the constant hum of modern life. The sun has already set, and darkness settles slowly over a medieval town. The streets grow empty, one by one, as people return to their homes. Wooden doors close, footsteps fade, and soon, only the soft sounds of the night remain. Inside, the light is dim. A single candle flickers gently, casting moving shadows along rough wooden walls. The room feels small, simple, and still. This is where the night begins. But sleep, in the Middle Ages, was not quite what we know today. It did not come all at once. It did not last in one continuous stretch. Instead, the night unfolded in stages, slow, quiet, and deeply connected to the natural rhythm of darkness. As you imagine lying down in a simple bed, perhaps made of wood, filled with straw or rough fabric, you can feel how different everything is. There is no artificial light to extend the evening. No distractions to keep the mind awake. Only darkness and time. And yet, people did not always sleep straight through the night. They woke, they rested again. They moved through the night in a way that now feels unfamiliar, but once felt completely natural. In these quiet hours, when the world outside was still, the night became something more than just rest. It became a space, a pause, a time that existed between sleep and waking. Tonight, we'll gently explore what sleeping in the Middle Ages was really like, how people rested, how they moved through the night, and how something as simple as darkness shaped their lives. So take a moment to settle in, relax your thoughts, and let yourself drift into a slower, quieter night, where sleep followed a very different rhythm. As the candle burns lower and the quiet of the night deepens, the rhythm of medieval sleep begins to reveal itself, not as a single, uninterrupted stretch, but as something more layered, more gradual. In the Middle Ages, many people did not sleep straight through the night the way we do today. Instead, their rest was divided into two parts: the first sleep and the second sleep. As you imagine lying in a simple wooden bed, wrapped in rough blankets, the body slowly relaxes. The warmth of the room, subtle, uneven, mixes with the coolness of the night air that finds its way through small gaps in the walls. Eventually, sleep comes, deep, heavy, quiet. This is what was often called the first sleep. It lasted for several hours, carried by the natural darkness that surrounded everything. Outside, the town is silent. Inside, only the soft sound of breathing fills the space. But then, something changes. Without alarm, without urgency, you wake, not suddenly, not with confusion, but gently, as if the body has completed one part of its rest. The candle may still be faintly glowing, or perhaps the room is now completely dark. Time feels different here, slower, less defined. This moment between sleeps was not unusual. It was expected. People would often remain awake for a short period before returning to rest, and during this time, the world felt different. Still, quiet, suspended between night and morning. Some might sit up slowly, adjusting to the darkness. Others might simply lie still, letting their thoughts drift. There was no pressure to fall asleep immediately, no sense of interruption. This pause was part of the rhythm, part of the natural cycle of rest. In some homes, people might use this time quietly, speaking softly, reflecting, or simply existing in the calm stillness of the night. The outside world remained silent, No movement, no distraction, only the feeling of time passing, gently. And then, just as naturally as the waking came, sleep would return. The second sleep, lighter, softer, carrying the body through the final hours of the night until the first light of morning began to appear. This pattern, sleep, wakefulness, and sleep again, was not something unusual. It was normal. A natural response to a world without artificial light, where the night stretched longer and time moved differently. As you remain in this quiet moment, suspended between sleep and waking, you begin to understand how different rest once felt. Not rushed, not forced, but flowing, slowly, in harmony with the darkness itself. As the first sleep comes to an end and the body slowly wakes, the night does not feel interrupted. Instead, it opens. The darkness remains the same. The room is still quiet, but now there is a gentle awareness, a soft return to wakefulness. In the Middle Ages, this period between sleeps was not something unusual. It was expected, a natural part of the night, and in this quiet space, people often remained awake for some time before returning to rest. There was no rush to fall asleep again, no sense of discomfort, only a calm acceptance of this pause. As you imagine yourself sitting up slightly in a dimly lit room, the world feels distant. The walls are still. The air is cool. The candle, if still burning, flickers softly, its light moving gently across the room. This is a different kind of time, not part of the busy day, not fully part of sleep, something in between. Some people use this moment quietly. They might adjust their blankets, sit for a while, or simply remain still, letting their thoughts drift without direction. Others might speak softly if they were not alone. The voices are low, almost whispers. There is no need for volume in a world where everything else is silent. In some cases, people would move gently through the space, adding a small piece of wood to a fire, checking the room, or simply shifting their position. These actions were slow, careful, never hurried, because the night itself encouraged stillness. Outside, nothing changes. The streets remain empty, the sky dark, the town at rest. And this creates a feeling that is difficult to experience in the modern world. A deep quiet, a stillness that feels complete. In this stillness, time seems to stretch. Moments feel longer, more open. There is no pressure to do anything, no expectation to fill the silence. And because of that, the mind moves differently. More slowly, more gently, without distraction. Eventually, without effort, sleep begins to return. Not suddenly, but gradually. The body settles, the thoughts fade, and the second sleep begins. Soft, light, carrying you through the remaining hours of the night. As you move through this quiet rhythm, sleep, waking, and sleep again, you begin to understand how natural it once felt. Not as an interruption, but as part of the flow. A peaceful cycle shaped by darkness, silence, and time itself. As the night continues and the world remains wrapped in darkness, one detail becomes especially important. Light, or more precisely, the lack of it. In the Middle Ages, night was truly dark. Not softly dim, not gently lit, but deep, complete darkness that filled every space not touched by flame. As you imagine yourself inside a small medieval home, the only source of light may be a single candle. Its flame is small, unsteady. It flickers with every subtle movement of air, casting shadows that shift and stretch along the walls. This light does not fill the room. It only reveals part of it. The rest remains hidden, just beyond its reach. And this creates a very different feeling from the evenly lit spaces we know today. Here, light is limited, precious, used carefully. A candle was not something to leave burning without thought. It required material, time, and effort to create. So people often used it sparingly. Sometimes the flame would be extinguished early, leaving the room in near total darkness. And in that darkness, the world changes. Objects disappear. Edges soften. The space feels larger and quieter. Not in a way that causes alarm, but in a way that slows everything down. Without constant light, the body responds differently. The eyes adjust. The mind becomes calmer. The pace of thought softens, guided by the stillness of the night. Outside, the darkness is even deeper. The streets are unlit. The sky, if clear, offers only faint natural light. And beyond that, nothing. No distant glow, no background brightness, only the natural rhythm of night. This kind of darkness shaped how people experienced time. Without light to extend the evening, the day ended sooner. Activities slowed. Movement became more careful, and rest came more naturally. Even the simple act of moving through a room required attention, small, deliberate steps, guided by memory rather than sight. And in this way, darkness was not just the absence of light. It was part of life, a presence that shaped behavior, movement, and rest. As the candle burns lower, its flame growing smaller, the room gradually returns to shadow. The last visible details fade. The walls disappear into darkness, and soon only the quiet remains. A deep, uninterrupted stillness, and within that stillness, sleep returns once more, soft, natural, and perfectly aligned with the rhythm of the night. As the night continues and the candlelight fades into darkness, another detail of medieval sleep becomes clear: where and how people slept. Because rest was not only shaped by time and darkness, but also by the space itself. As you imagine lying down once more, the bed beneath you feels very different from what we know today. It is simple, often made from wood, sometimes raised slightly from the ground, sometimes more basic. The surface is not soft in the modern sense. Instead, it is filled with materials like straw, hay, or rough fabric. These materials shift slightly as you move, creating a surface that adapts slowly but never fully settles. Blankets, if present, are heavy and textured, not smooth, not light, but practical, designed to hold warmth during the colder nights. In many homes, sleeping was not always a private experience. People often shared space, sometimes even the same bed, not out of discomfort, but out of practicality. Rooms were limited. Heat was shared. And closeness made the night feel warmer. As you rest in this space, you can sense how different the feeling of comfort is. It is not about softness or luxury. It is about warmth, about protection from the cold, about being sheltered within the quiet structure of the home. The air itself plays a role. It is cooler, less controlled. Small openings in walls or roofs allow subtle movement of air, bringing with it the feeling of the outside world. This connection to the environment is constant. You are never fully separated from the night. And yet, this does not disturb rest. Instead, it becomes part of it. The sounds are minimal. A faint movement of wood, the soft shifting of fabric, perhaps the distant sound of wind. All of it blends into a quiet background that does not interrupt sleep, but supports it. Even the position of the body feels different. People often slept in slightly elevated positions, supported by simple cushions or folded materials, not fully flat, but gently raised. A posture that felt natural within the rhythm of the time. As the second sleep continues, the body settles deeper into this environment. Not perfectly comfortable, but steady, consistent, familiar. And that familiarity becomes its own form of comfort. Because in a world without constant change, the body adapts. It learns the space. It understands the surface. And over time, rest becomes something simple, not optimized, not perfected, but natural. As the final hours of the night pass, and the first faint signs of morning begin to approach, the room remains still. The bed holds its shape. The blankets remain heavy and warm, and sleep continues, quietly, until the day begins again. As the night stretches on and the darkness settles fully over the town, another detail begins to emerge. Not something you can see, but something you can hear. Because in the Middle Ages, night was not completely silent. It was quietly alive. As you lie in the dim space of a wooden room, surrounded by darkness and the fading warmth of the day, your awareness begins to shift. Without bright light, without constant movement, the senses adjust, and slowly, sound becomes more noticeable. At first, it is very subtle. The faint creak of wood as the structure of the house settles, a soft movement of fabric as someone shifts in their sleep, the quiet rhythm of breathing in the room. These sounds are not interruptions. They are part of the stillness, part of the environment. And beyond the walls, the night continues in its own quiet way. The distant sound of wind moving through narrow streets, a wooden sign gently tapping against a wall, the soft movement of animals somewhere nearby. Nothing loud, nothing sudden, only small, natural sounds that come and go, without urgency. As you listen, the world feels larger, not because of what you can see, but because of what you can sense. Every sound carries space, distance, depth, and without the noise of modern life, each one becomes clearer, more defined, more noticeable, but never overwhelming. Even footsteps, if they appear at all, are slow, measured, fading quickly into silence. There is no constant background noise, no distant hum, no continuous movement. Only moments of sound, surrounded by long stretches of quiet. This creates a unique kind of calm, a rhythm where silence is not empty, but full, where each sound feels intentional, even when it is not. And as you remain in this space, listening without effort, the mind begins to relax. There is nothing to focus on, nothing to follow, only the gentle rise and fall of quiet sounds, blending into stillness. Over time, even these small details begin to fade. The creaks soften, the wind settles, the room grows quieter still, until once again the night becomes almost completely silent. And in that silence, sleep returns, naturally, without effort, carried by the calm, steady rhythm of a world that moves slowly, even in the dark. As the night slowly comes to an end, the world begins to shift once more. Not suddenly, not sharply, but gently, almost without being noticed. The darkness softens, the air changes, and somewhere beyond the walls, the first signs of morning begin to appear. Inside, everything remains still. The bed, simple and familiar. The blankets, heavy and warm. The quiet rhythm of breathing. All of it continues, just as it has through the night. As you think back on this slower way of rest, the first sleep, the quiet waking hours, the second sleep, you begin to understand how different the night once felt. It was not something to pass through quickly. It was something to move within. A space between day and morning. A time shaped by darkness, silence, and natural rhythm. There was no pressure to sleep perfectly, no need to control every moment. Only a gentle flow from rest to wakefulness and back again. And in that flow, something feels calmer, more natural, more connected to the world itself. As the light of morning slowly replaces the darkness, the night comes to a quiet close. The pause between sleeps disappears. The stillness fades, and the rhythm of the day begins again. But for a moment, just before everything fully returns, there is still calm, still quiet, still rest. And you can let yourself remain there just a little longer before the world gently moves forward once more.